If you follow the channel and you've watched one of my many smart home tours, and when I say many, I'm talking about all the different places we've lived and my Silverhammer office for that matter. We move a lot. I know it borderlines insanity, but it is what it is. But one common thread of all those different places has been Nanoleaf. Whether it's the Nanoleaf canvas, the shapes, the elements, the bulbs, the lines, whatever it may be, I've had Nanoleaf at all of them. And today we're talking about one of their newest offerings called the Nanoleaf Skylight. I first saw it at CES 2023, and once I laid eyes on it, I was excited, man. Well, now the Skylight is out in the world, and I've had my chance to get some experience with it, and that's what we're talking about today. So let's get to it. What up, everybody? George Langabeer here. Nanoleaf, known for their smart, functional, and fun lighting. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. Again, we're talking about Nanoleaf's newest offering called the Nanoleaf Skylight. It's a modular lighting kit that replaces one of your existing light fixtures on your ceiling and does all the cool, normal Nanoleaf stuff. So we're going to unbox it, we're going to talk specs, and I'm going to give you my full review. Let's start with the unboxing. All right, before we proceed, I want to thank Nanoleaf for sending me the Skylight. This is not a sponsored video, not that it matters, because no matter what, I'm going to tell you like it is. But they just sent it to me to try out, and I appreciate that. So thanks, Nanoleaf. I also want to say real quick, this video is going to be a little unique in the fact that here at Voltage Studio, I didn't have a place to install the Skylight. I don't have a single light fixture in here that would work with this thing, which sucks. Plus, I rent, and I didn't want to bother my landlord with such a thing. So I got the wise idea to enlist a friend of mine. His name is Sean. I've known him forever. He used to work for me back in my days as a loss prevention manager. He's now a police officer. Plus, he's got his very own Apple Home smart home. We're cut from the same cloth. He's got his own smart home. I thought it was a perfect match. Plus, it's going to give us a unique perspective. It's not only going to be my review, but also his review as the typical homeowner. And I think that's pretty cool. Hopefully he can help me in the future because there's a lot of things here I can't review because I have an apartment. But getting back to the Skylight, let's move on to the installation and setup. Okay, so again, the Skylight is designed to replace an existing light fixture on your ceiling. So first things first, you're going to turn off your breaker because you want to be safe. Then you're going to remove your old light fixture. You're going to take the main panel for the Skylight and put it where that light fixture was. Then you can add up to 100 additional panels using a communication cable between the panels. So you just want to think out your design. You can either go in straight lines or squares or rectangular, whatever you want to do, but just keep that in mind and map it out because you are going to have some permanent holes in your ceiling for each different panel. So please keep that in mind. Okay, moving on to setup. Now, when you're setting up the Skylight, you can do it two different ways. You can use the Apple Home app because in our case, Sean and myself, we're both Apple Home guys. You can use Google Home and Lady A from Amazon, but we're talking Apple Home today. So you can use that app or you can use the Nanoleaf app. Now, I always suggest using the Nanoleaf app with any Nanoleaf product because you get a few different advantages that way. Number one, it's going to seamlessly integrate in Apple Home anyway as part of the setup process, but then you're also going to get advantages like automatic firmware updates because you always want to update firmware on a device like this right out of the gate. So I suggest the Nanoleaf app, but on both it's very simple. With Apple Home, you're going to add it just like any other HomeKit device. You're going to scan your QR code and you're off to the races. And then Nanoleaf app, same thing. You just add it like any other device. It walks you through it step by step, including adding it to Apple Home. And it's a breeze. All right, now that we've talked setup, let's talk price and specs. Okay, starting with price, we've got a couple different configurations for the Skylight. We've got the Smarter Kit, which includes everything you need to get started. You got a 3-pack, 4-pack, 6-pack, or 9-pack. 3-pack is $249.99. 4-pack is $299.99. 6-pack is $413.96. The 9-pack is $599.99. And you can get a 12-pack for $747.91. Then you can also buy a single panel extension pack for $69.99. All right, so is the Skylight worth those prices? We're going to find that out in my review in a minute, but let's start with some specs. Brightness, each panel has 1400 lumens, and that's 2700K to 6500K of brightness. We got RGB color channels giving you dedicated white LEDs. You're going to want those white LEDs to be bright as possible because if you're replacing your existing ceiling light, of course you want to light up whatever room that is. The Skylight is compatible with pretty much every smart home platform you can think of, specifically Apple Home, Google Home, and Lady A from Amazon. But we got SmartThings, IFTTT. We pretty much have everything with the Skylight, which is always great with Nanoleaf. The Skylight is going to use your 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi network. These lights are rated indoor only. You wouldn't want to put them outside. You can dim these lights from 1% to 100% brightness. And Nanoleaf says the Skylight has a 25,000 hour lifespan. All right, now that we've talked specs, let's talk about the Nanoleaf app. With the Skylight, you've got all the normal Nanoleaf features. Now, clearly, with the Skylight, you can change the color and the temperature of the lights through the app. Again, the Skylight has whites and colors, and you can do all the above with the app. You've got the normal Nanoleaf scenes and effects. You've got a favorite section, and then you can also create your own scene. And then they also have a magic scene feature, which is very cool, where you basically use text and then it creates a scene based off of your text. And that's pretty freaking cool. Now I'm going to talk more about the app in my review and the pros and cons, and that's exactly what we're going to move into. So let's give my review of the Skylight and Sean's review for that matter. We're going to talk pros and cons. We're going to start with the pros. All right, as I just mentioned, when it comes to the pros and the cons for that matter, it's very important to have Sean's input. He actually installed the Skylight for us. He's been in the trenches with this thing more than me. Plus, I just love having that point of view as your typical homeowner, whereas I'm a YouTuber. So it's very important to know what he thought. Now that goes with pro number one, which was the installation. He thought it was pretty simple to follow the instructions, and he wanted to note that he had zero electrical experience, whereas I've installed Lutron and Brilliant and all the things that came with Silverhammer in the smart home. But he had zero, and he thought the instructions were very easy to follow, and the installation wasn't bad at all. I would say we both say that the panels were very well made. So good construction, and they should be for that price. The panels are very cool. They're a conversation starter. You know, I think the smart home in general can be a conversation starter, but these are a real attention grabber, and they look great on the ceiling. Now, I've always thought this, but Nanoleaf is great in the fact that their scenes from their app carry over to the Apple Home app. And with a lot of smart home lighting, that's not the case. So Nanoleaf really does that well. Another pro is the brightness. Now, Sean in particular, he had a pretty dim basement, and he wanted to replace those lights with the Skylight and hoping to brighten it up, and that's exactly what it did. Now, the whites are a little brighter than the colors, but the colors still looked awesome, and then just for a normal light, the Skylight really lit up his basement a lot more than it did before, and he loved that. Now, I know some reviews out there with the Skylight, people have talked about it being a little difficult to line up the panels. Sean had no problem with that. and inspecting it, I saw no issue with that. Now, he did put them in a straight line, and I think some people have a little more problem when they're putting it in patterns, and that very well may be, but in our experience, it was very easy to line up those panels. Sean also wanted to mention that there were several connection options available. There were 6 electrical options within the panel and 8 within the communication linker, so he thought that was great. Another pro is that Nanoleaf provides several built-in clips to the panel, which allows you to hide the excess wiring, and that allows for a clean look. And one of my favorite features with Nanoleaf has always been that you can sync your lights to your music. And it's no different with the skylights, and Sean really liked that as well. And man, if you got like 100 panels on a ceiling and you synced it to your music, you could have a pretty killer party, pretty killer dance floor. I think that's pretty cool, and Nanoleaf does that very well. Now, Sean was new to Nanoleaf completely, so he really loved the scenes, and being a law enforcement officer, he really loved the cop scene. He was pretty excited when he found that one. All right, moving on to the cons. Now, even though Sean found the installation to be very easy, he did mention that it was also very tedious, in the fact that there's a piece where you have to remove 4 screws during the installation, and he thought, man, that was redundant, and just did a few panels. Imagine doing 100 panels and having to remove those 4 screws on every single one of them. And I could agree with him how that would be tedious. I mean, sometimes installing Nanoleaf in general is quite the process, but it's always rewarding when you're done. But it sounds like with Sean's experience, same thing. But yeah, I saw what he was talking about with those screws, and yeah, he's absolutely right. All right, then adding the Nanoleaf Skylight to Apple Home. Sean found that if you were trying to scan the QR code on the center panel, he just for the life of him couldn't get it to go. Then he scanned the QR code on the instruction manual and he was fine. So then he got an Apple Home right away. So just keep that in mind. We had that problem. Now, I know in some other reviews, I've heard reviewers say that they've had problems with the skylights going offline. Sean wanted to say that he had that issue at first, and then that seemed to fix itself very quickly. And he hasn't had connection issues since. And he's talking Nanoleaf and the Apple Home app. One con for me specifically is there's no adaptive lighting when it comes to using this with Apple Home. I love that adapting light feature, and especially since these have those bright whites, it'd be nice to have that adaptive lighting. So that's a con for me. All right, last but not least on the cons is the Nanoleaf app. In theory, the Nanoleaf app should be amazing because it is robust and loaded with features, and you can do so many cool things. But when it comes to real life and practicality, I don't know, man. It's hard to use sometimes. Now, Sean didn't have any problems and he liked it, but I've used a lot of different Nanoleaf products. I've actually installed a lot of Nanoleaf products for Silverhammer customers, and it's kind of very polarizing, the Nanoleaf app. So for me, the Nanoleaf app in general is a con, only because of the real life functionality. I think they could improve that. And then lastly, just to finish up the review, this isn't a pro or con, this is just something to keep in mind. This is a smart light that is connected to electrical wiring and a light switch. Just keep in mind, you got to keep that light switch on or this will not work. So I found some little covers for my light switches. There's different ways that you can make sure somebody doesn't turn off that light, but please keep that in mind because again, it won't work the way you want it to if it's off. All right, that's it. That's me and Sean's review of the Nanoleaf Skylight. Thanks again, Sean. I really appreciate it. And thanks, Nanoleaf, for sending me the Skylight. But what do you guys think? Did you buy the Skylight? Are you going to buy the Skylight? Do you like Nanoleaf products? What do you think of the Nanoleaf app? Do you find it to be as polarizing as I do? It's interesting. I want to like it. Trust me, I do. But sometimes real life practicality and functionality suffers in that app. That's all I got to say about that. But please let me know what you think. Thanks very much for watching. To all you subscribers out there, past, present, and future, I love you. Thanks for the support. And until the next video, peace and love.